Welcome to the latest edition of Startup Grind's Founder Series, where we educate our community on highly relevant early stage topics through interviews with founders of our top startup members. Today's subject is, how can the global startup ecosystem better support female founders? And the goal today is to draw from Jessica's experiences as a founder and a thought leader on this topic in order to pull out valuable and actionable insights for the global startup ecosystem, as I said. So just quickly, as normal, we'll start with some introductions and then we'll dive into the questions. As you know, hopefully, having watched some of these previous videos, I'm Gordon-Furse. I'm the VP of Sales and Startups here at Startup Grind, which is the world's largest startup community, educating, inspiring, and connecting pre-seed, seed, and Series A founders across 120 countries. My guest today is Jessica Mendoza, who's the founder and CEO at Monadd, which is honestly an amazing product, which enables individuals to update their addresses across all their service providers when they move, all in under 5 minutes, which is what I read on your website. And I remember you saying before, Jessica, this is a problem I've complained about a lot in my life. How did you come up with the idea, and where did you even start with something like that?
I think it's, I've moved a lot. So I'm originally from Venezuela. I lived in Scotland when I was a kid.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I lived in
Aberdeen.
Yeah, so you know Aberdeen? It's like
Aberdeen.
Edinburgh. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I lived there. I moved back to Venezuela. I moved to the United States. I moved across the United States and then moved to Europe. And I found that throughout all of these moves, there's always something that you have to do in order to not get late fees, not get misinformation. And also there's like a chunk of paper waste that people actually leave behind, and that is updating your address. And I felt like, why is this not being done if it's something like incredibly simple? So I started doing it accidentally because I had the problem. And then a couple of technologists came around and told me, like, you know what, we'll help you build it. And we're like, okay, let's do this. And that's how it started.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, how has it gone in the first sort of first couple of years?
Yeah, so it's going well. So like at the beginning is just very much validating your proposition. So you have to make sure that one, people are using it. Two, there's willingness to pay, because that's the first question that investors will ask. And there is a product that people will continue to use. So there's some residency, there's some continuity. So far, we've been able to meet those three over a span of like what it was like a very shaky year in 2020. And good thing, because like now things are growing, things are moving, partnerships are booming. So it's at the beginning, it was just all about validating. And that was like one of the toughest things. Yeah.
I mean, to have survived as any company last year, relatively unscathed, especially as a sort of pre-seed seed founder, is absolutely amazing. So well done for that.
I know. I'm surprised too. Like sometimes I see like things just pop up out of the blue. You have just to take it. Like when opportunities arise. And it's also about like determining your time, because like when you have very limited resources, you have to think about where do I put my time and energy into, and it's shifting towards what's going to give you quick wins versus some of the longer term things. Because if there's not enough cash flow or capital to deploy, then you're just going to be with a halfway product instead of having like a very good quick win.
Yeah. Hyper-focus.
Yeah, and it's a battle. Like don't put me into the spot on it, because I sometimes lose my hyper-focus, as some people may know, and I need others to tell me like, no, Jessica, focus. I'm like, okay.
It's a hard thing. It's a very good skill to learn. Very, very valuable skill to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously we'll use the thread of your kind of experience as a founder, because it looks like you've sort of started a bunch of different kind of communities and support groups, I guess, over your time as well, before you even started Monadd. So we'll use the thread of that a little bit later on. But sort of, as I've alluded to here, what I've seen from just research before this is that you've personally been very proactive in supporting others throughout your, relatively short career. And so what has actually inspired you or still inspires you to do that with what you've already been doing?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I was inspired to make a difference. I think like as any young professional, you're inspired to what are the places where you can make the most impact. And now a little bit down the line, what inspires me and where I put my time on is how can I help others make their impact, and how can I facilitate or be that platform that gives them a voice to be heard. Because I've had those building blocks across my career where there was a community or an industry organization where I was able to explore some of the things that I was passionate about. And it doesn't have to be like, very, very solid skills, like a data science course. It may be more of like soft skills, like how can I speak better in public? And I had those resources provided to me via communities when I was a young professional. So now that I've moved a little bit down the line, I see young professionals or founders also like in my same level, like peer to peer. And I try to identify how is the best way that I can support them with the resources that I have available.
Yeah. On what you said at the beginning there, I read a really interesting quote, which I liked, which was, you can create a lot of meaning in your own life by helping other people do what is meaningful to them, which mm-hmm. Sounds like, is part of your driver. And I definitely feel the same. So I can definitely understand that. So some of the examples of the things that I looked at that you had done, there's the Center for Civic Engagement, which is one of the first things that you started doing, and then the Inspiration Alliance. So if we kind of start on those two, and then we can come to the latter two afterwards.
Yeah, of course.
Could you talk a little bit about them? That would be great.
Yeah, so the Center for Civic Engagement, this brings me back to university years. So this was an organization that helped facilitate civic engagement across local communities where I was at. I was in New York, and also have students and people in those local communities think about the impact that they can make, even if it's like super small, or get educated on important topics such as any worldly issues and climate change. And also how we can best celebrate or commemorate some things that happened in the past without dismissing them. I got involved. I had the opportunity to actually travel to Togo, to Africa, to implement an environmental program in Africa with some students of the University of Lomé to help people. At the beginning, it was like, how can we best help people recycle in Lomé, which is in Togo, and then when we landed and we realized people don't need to recycle. People need to learn how to properly put things in the trash, because they don't even have that in the areas where we're going. They don't have that education, that sense of awareness. So we realized that we were coming in with a completely different problem that we faced in the West, that it was not felt over there, and had to readjust it. I learned a lot from that because it shows you to adapt to different situations, and that your proposition may not work for everybody. Clearly, you actually have to see it. You actually have to be there. I mean, you need people and the sources to guide you as well. That was the Center for Civic Engagement. Later on in life, I created the Inspiration Alliance, which was a community organization that helped people in New York, young professionals, grow in their careers. So we provided a series of courses on leadership, public speaking, how to change their career and pivot to doing something completely else, or how to quit their job. So we were even one of our sessions was called Should I Stay or Should I Go? So we were really tapping into these people who are like trying to find their path and trying to see like where can they go into next, and letting them know that it is okay. It is okay to have this thinking. It is okay to change your path. It doesn't have to be like all finance, or, you know, or code. You can have all of these different paths along the way and still have like a robust career. Yeah, I think at this point in time, like the term for this type of careers are called portfolio careers. So you have like different things that have arisen in different areas. And I've also like modeled that a little bit. So I'm a proponent of it. Yeah.
So it sounds like across those two things, you know, the most important thing is what you're saying is, you know, seek first to understand. So I kind of like you have to really understand the people that you're trying to help and what their issues are first, right? And then you can kind of adapt to that rather than coming and saying, I'm going to help you in this way.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and you kind of just go in and say like, we have this great solution, you know, like there's so many now with Entrepreneurial Hat, there's so many founders that have like an incredible idea or a incredible like product that they think it's going to work everywhere. They put it into the market and it, you know, it fails or it doesn't do well because they don't really understand the market, or they don't understand their audience. So yeah, it's a lot about, you know, really doing that research, immersing yourself into it, seek that understanding. Yeah, and build a little bit of empathy, you know, along the way. You know, it's and being prepared to being wrong, because that happened to me. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, that recycling program out the window. Yeah, let's focus on this other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The companies that kind of lead with the technology they're using to build the tool, rather than actually what the solution is for the person they're trying to help, you know. So yeah, and coming to the Dreamers Doers, I think you're a founding member of that. Firstly, what does it mean as a founding member? Is it something that was started by someone else and you were one of the first, or were you kind of, did you support them in starting it? How did that work?
Yeah, so that was one of my first I guess like when I was like dipping my toes into the entrepreneurship world. So Dreamers Doers is a group of both founders, freelancers, consultants, mostly female, who are supporting each other. So I was a founding member, so I was one of the first members there. And how it works is that whenever there is an opportunity in different industries and there needs to be a female founder too, or like a female expert to be put in a panel, the opportunity is provided to us. And if there is an expert, then sometimes they pick from there. I had, and they give the incredible opportunities. I was able to work at a VC company with, started writing for Inside Venture partners based on opportunity provided by Dreamers Doers. I got some consulting gigs when I was doing consultancy with a new museum in New York because of Dreamers Doers opportunities. So there's really great opportunities that come out of it, but it's because they're trying to find talent that is far more diverse, and it is not, you know, it is not what, you know, everybody else does, that I just like look at, you know, your regular pool. People now are being more conscious about like where they can actually pull talent from, and they ask these questions and they have these opportunities in Dreamers Doers.
And sort of, I guess, coming back to the title of our interview today, you know, how can the global startup ecosystem better support female founders?
Yeah.
What are there enough organizations like this? Basically, I guess would be a good question.
Yeah, you know, like it is difficult to say, because even if there are not enough organizations, I feel like there is not enough awareness or education. So per se, you don't have to have an organization just for female founders. The difference between an organization that's focused on female founders versus organizations that's not is that in a female founder led organization or focused organization, there's a greater sense of trust. You know, there's a greater sense of community. It's like, think of it of like, you know, social clubs, private clubs, you know, like you feel like you belong to something, you have like a sense of trust or belonging or something to that extent. And you know, this is a very different example, but in female led organizations and promoting that the female innovation, there's an openness to speak about issues that we face, because we know that everybody else around us can relate to some extent or the other. So that is the beauty of it. So like that's how we can like help each other in difficult moments, have it be personal or work or career related. What I think about regular organizations is that there has to be more awareness that possibly a female entrepreneur or any type of emergent leader who is just at their beginning stages is not going to naturally apply for that speaking position. It's not going to naturally apply for a grant application or, that pitch competition. You really have to encourage that, because it may be that the situations that they have lived through other lives, they've been conditioned to think differently. And it's not their fault. It's just like the environment that they were in, the environment that they were brought up, the messages that they heard, the lack of role models that they saw didn't allow them to see like, oh, maybe I can do that. But in order to be aware and be an organization supporting that, you need to provide more paths, more avenues in, and more encouragement to those female emerging leaders to join the organization, to participate, to have a say. Because oftentimes, there may be just like naturally, just by default, their condition is that to not say much, to maybe just kind of like, oh, that's not for me. Whereas like, you may ask this for another person who has always been told to speak up or have a say, they'll very much like take the opportunity right away. But because of female gender, and the conditioned behaviors that we have had, sometimes we don't take those opportunities. So I would say like it's more education and awareness in creating those opportunities to bring those emerging leaders into the front.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you were saying there are I think, common themes in the famous book by Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In, right? It's a lot of what you were saying was coming back to me from the book. And you said that the Dreamers Doers organization is mainly, or the majority of them are women. Are there some men, and or it sounds like there are some men. If so, why are they in it, and why are there not more of them in this organization, would you say?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's like that sense of trust and bonding and commitment. I believe there's more men that are supporting organizations. I remember going to an event from Dreamers and Doers, and it was hosted by like a venture capitalist in his house. And it was a man, and he's like, hey, I really support, women-led organizations and female businesses. I'm more than happy to like help anybody here with whatever they have. And I was not in entrepreneurial world then. I was in my corporate role back in the day, but I saw the opportunities. It's like, oh, there's more men that are thinking to be supporters and provide a supportive environment for these women to feel safe. Because what happens sometimes is that there's this mentality of like us versus them. And yeah, I do think that there's a need for more integration. However, naturally, like some of the issues that we sometimes deal with in Dreamers and Doers are more like female shaped, like, something about motherhood, or something about, like our own, like body parts and how they're reacting to something. So that conversation is like naturally more conducive to have with other women. It's more of a way of how to connect. But there are some men that are helping, and I feel like they're not fully integrated, perhaps because, like they see it as like a female only thing, but they are supporting the organization. Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that just because some of the issues that are being discussed as part of that organization are like, just because they're female issues doesn't mean that only women should be listening to them, right? It comes back to what you said at the beginning. It's like, we have to first understand what women have to go through, for example, in different areas of their lives in order to better support them. So if those issues are only being shared between women, then men can't actually understand them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, part of it is like, how can we integrate more men into these conversations, like for perhaps like a new mother, if she's going into a panel and has to like give a speech, but all of a sudden she has to pump milk, on the side. It's like, hey, where's the room where I actually like pump milk? You know, like these are things that happen to women that sometimes like men, because biologically they just don't have those situations arise to them. But this happens, and it has happened throughout centuries. So yeah, it's more about like how can we have this conversation? I think like naturally women tend to lean towards women when there's like a situation like that.
Mhm.
But I think men need to be more integrated.
Yeah, I mean, and you say like, you know, a woman before she's going onto a panel, you know, maybe needing to pump or breastfeed her baby or something.
Yeah.
That is not just a woman's issue, right? Because
Yeah.
two people have a baby, right? It's, you know, it's usually a man and a woman. So it's also a man's, you know, it's important for a man to understand and empathize, because that lady has a husband probably who's had that baby with her. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
and what is your view on kind of, you know, female only programs or female led initiatives for women, or potentially you know, just trying to kind of better integrate female founders into existing organizations? You know, what is, do you feel like there need to be more organizations that support mainly women, or just that existing organizations need to better integrate?
I think it's like existing organizations need to integrate. I like, what I'm conscious about is not to like create again like a boys club and a girls club sort of thing, or like other types of clubs out there. But it's more about how can we best integrate. However, the gaps are so large, they're so big between women and men in leadership roles, in board positions. They're so large that the initiatives right now are for women to again move forward, to take that initiative, take that leap, and support them. Because again, they may naturally may not have that inclination. So I think if it is a female-led initiative within a large organization that has like a varied, diversity, diversity propositions, then it would be incredibly fine. Or if it is a company like Drummers and Doers trying to integrate female leadership in different panels, in different events, in different roles, then that is also okay. But like you have to, it's seek that path of integration. It cannot just like be like its own organism by itself, because otherwise it just doesn't go anywhere. Yeah.
And I'm interested, some of these are probably what you're talking about when you're part of this, the Commission for the Status on Women with the United Nations. I think that was something that you were doing a couple of weeks ago. When I was looking at the website for the most recent event, it said that the priority theme was women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. So how does that connect to, what are some of the key themes that you gleaned from that are relevant to your entrepreneurial life and the way that you've been supporting others as well?
Yeah, I think like one of the key things is to have a voice and share that, whatever it is, like for women to have like, if they feel uncomfortable in something, or if they feel something that doesn't look right, or there's some behavior that they have seen in others that doesn't look right, share it. Because sometimes it's not something for them to keep onto themselves, but like the minute they share it, they get another perspective, and they start like, understanding that behavior, like whether that was correct or not correct, or whether it was something that actually should be taken action on immediately. If it is not shared, then like what happens, and like there's a problem, is like people just, like women just do not share, they keep it to themselves until like it accumulates, and then the bubble bursts. And that what happened with the Me Too movement. But these are women that have like, not shared, like their situations and their events for years, and all of a sudden like one comes up and the other one comes out and the other one comes out, and now like because they feel like they're not alone, they have more of a support of sharing. So yeah, I think it's what I learned from that is, allowing people, like women in particular, to have that platform to where they can feel safe and trusted, and for them to share their voice. It doesn't have to be right or wrong or anything like that. You just share it. I feel like that's not, there's so many different places around the world where women are not taking a stand, and it's because of the culture. Like they're not allowed to drive, they're not allowed to say something, they're not allowed to dress a certain way. And it's problematic because they're not allowing them to express themselves. So it's been like very limited. So yeah, that's something that was resonating across the UN Commission.
And in your experience as a founder, what are the kind of aspects of your founder journey so far that you think would have been easier had you not been a female founder?
Oh boy, I think like everything. Like it's like the thing is like whenever you go into like meetings with investors, I've had like awful experiences, awful.
Wow.
Where, you know, like I've gone to a meeting and the person comes in late, you know, they say like, do you want coffee? I'm like, no. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go get coffee. They go get coffee, come back. And then they're like, all right, so tell me about your startup. And what they do is like, they put their hands like this and like, they start flexing their muscles while they're speaking to me.
What?
And I'm just, yeah, I just felt like, whoa, like that's not cool. That's just,
It
yeah.
sounds like you've seen this more than once as well.
It has happened a couple of times, or this is one event where it happened and I was just kind of like, are you listening? And he then says like, oh, I'm gonna go for a second coffee. Do you want to come on? It's like weird things. The other situation that has happened to me is that sometimes people or some of these investors are very pointed to the point that they just try to almost like break you, you know, like they try to find like where your weakness and dig and dig and dig and dig. And there was a point in time where like this investor was asking me, like, you have a great product over here, but you need this and that. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why don't you have this, you know, on your deck? Or, and I was like, well, I was like, do you really just want me to add something and share it back with you? You know, there's like situations where it gets like that, where he's like super pointed and it's not allowing you to have an open conversation with the other party, but rather it's more like question, response, question, response, question, response, instead of like having a dialogue. And that it doesn't really work too well for, I feel like anybody, like whether you're female or not. But I feel like sometimes men are just like more used to it. For women, we enjoy, love dialogue. We like conversation. We like storytelling. And whenever there is a lack of that, or we feel like we're pressed, we're being like, interviewed in a very harsh way, we tend to retreat. You know, like we're like, this is not for me. Yeah. So
yeah, it's like you're already deciding you don't want investment from this person. So there's this weird dynamic building where they're kind of almost trying to tell you that they don't want to invest in you, and you don't really even want to be invested in by them, but you're still having to have this strange conversation.
And then you try to find a way out. You try to find like, okay, so like, how can I leave this room? Because this is not working out, you know? And sometimes at that point in time when that happened, I was like early my kind of like investment conversations. And I didn't know how to say no. And this is a problem that a lot of female founders face, where they're like, they just feel just lucky to be in the room with an investor, and they don't have the vocabulary to say, you know, thank you for your time, but I don't see how we might be working together in the future. You know, if anything else changes, drop me a line, but this is how I see it right now. And just like, you know, have the opportunity to leave and just cut the conversation. But that really doesn't come in naturally for some women. You just feel like, oh, you know, you have to be there for the journey. You have to see like what happens, you know, and it's a different, mentality.
But I mean, it's not just about the woman being educated to, or, you know, the woman being, I guess, educated on how to leave those situations. It's also about educating the men and how to adapt their style or
Well,
be aware of prejudices that they might have before they're going into a meeting like that.
absolutely. I mean, but there are some men that are just terrible, awful people. So like, even if they were to educate themselves, I feel like they will educate themselves the wrong way, you know? So there's like a tipping point where you're like, like just forget it. But yes, like as a whole, like for any other men out there, there has to be more awareness and like where are your biases coming from? Why are you conducting this style of interviews or conversation? Pay attention to your body language, like what is it that you're doing that is like allowing you to promote like a bigger, larger figure, with your arms or like with anything. And it's maybe just like it's very primal, reflexes sometimes, it's like, oh, you see like a woman across the table, maybe like you need to like lean back or whatnot. But pay attention to that. Like, don't do that just because like you have a reflexes, like, be conscious that there's a human being across the table, looking to express themselves.
Yeah. It's awareness, as you say. It's just, I mean, education is awareness, right? It's building awareness about, the other person, about you, and about the dynamic between you. So
absolutely, yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about investment meetings. Are there any other kind of main aspects that you have found, maybe even through discussions with other female founders in your network, that you have kind of, maybe even you haven't experienced personally, but they have?
Yeah, I've had a couple of female founders tell me, and I've also experienced this, that it's not just men, but it's also women. So it doesn't matter what like. It's sometimes in conversations, particularly when there's the investor ecosystem and there's a founder ecosystem and they're coming together. Sometimes even women who are part of investment firms, they also tend to have this very intense dialogue with some female founders, but it is mostly because they have been conditioned, to it. They're part of like the club, like that they're representing. So they don't see it any other way. So you almost have to like remove the biases altogether to be able to see it and like see it as a human level. Yeah, I've had like some other friends, tell me that some men really make inappropriate comments whenever they're meeting somebody, like, oh, like if a person's pregnant, it's kind of like, oh, and you're still going to do your startup, or asking like, oh, how many children you have, what does it matter? Like it's none of our business really. Like we're here to talk about something else. If a person decides to share that, then great. But like, are you really going to judge, a woman based on like how many children she has at home and whether she's a single mother or not? It shouldn't really go into it because you're talking about something else completely. So there has to be, more awareness and more sense of those biases out there. But those are some of the stories that I've heard and that I've had. And it's not just men, it's also women who have been conditioned to just like belong into a certain like investment vibe. And it is unfortunate. I think like the trick that I see, that I do, is like, regardless of labels, like take them out. So like, I don't care if you're a partner, if you're a VP, if you're a director, don't care. You're a human. We are here together to talk about something. Let's accomplish that. If there is conversation about like to talk about something else in more of a casual fashion, great. But it's not about, what is it that you have at home? Why are, when are you thinking about having kids? No, it's more about like, let's talk about the matter, like that work here. And it's usually, startup, investment, partnerships, that sort of thing.
And you've obviously worked in corporate in the corporate world and the startup world. Do you feel like those some of these issues that you've mentioned, obviously not the specifics around investment because you're not looking for that in the corporate world, but do you feel like these are issues that permeate into both of those worlds, or are more in one or the other?
It's in both. It's in both, and you can sense it and you can feel it. When I was in corporate, the people who actually promoted me onward into growing my career, because yeah, sometimes you just like want to do everything, you know, as like a young professional, you have a skill set and you like want to do. Most of the people that I recognized it were women, and they helped me like get into the next level. So yeah, they're putting like a helping hand to even like to help me move and migrate to the United Kingdom. But I saw a lot in the culture. Yeah, I mean, and like things that they just like, yeah, I feel like they don't even notice, but you know, like scratching their pants. Like whenever you're like in a meeting, they're scratching something, they're doing some inappropriate behavior in like some areas of our bodies that where they shouldn't be scratching or touching. Yeah, and like things of that matter. Or whenever some conversations, you know, like all of a sudden get to yeah, it feels like they're inducing something personal, and it doesn't feel right. So yeah, it's this that happens all, you know, like in corporate and non-corporate. That happens, I feel like, across the board. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess coming into the theme of
Yeah.
trying to make progress in this space, who have been some of the most kind of influential people or types of people in your career so far that have kind of helped you and supported you? That would be interesting to dive into.
Yeah. Look, I think like I've met really great people from networks and from communities. So like when I mean networks, I mean like really communities that have been able to help me to get to the next level. I feel like community is the next best thing out there. Like if there's a company without a community, I'm like, I just don't know how you're working. I want to build a community for my business. You know, there's so many opportunities. Some of the people are my angels have helped me a lot. So like the angels of a business have helped a lot. And I've met them mostly through community.
Did you actually seek? So when you were looking for, you know, angels, obviously some people just look for angels that bring money and then whatever, and then others look for, you know, strategic angels who can help and advise. What kind of things were you looking for? You know, potentially even in the character of the angels that you brought on for Monadd.
Yeah. So I love people who are actually trusting and understanding me and hearing, you know, listen to what I have to say really well, because they are more empathetic about the stage where business is at, is like the pace of things, rather than in opposite to people who might just come in, well, we know that you need to be growing at this pace and these are the metrics that you need to be hitting, because they're coming from knowledge that they have from other experiences, but each startup is different. So even if they say you have to hit this by X date, that is something that they come with, and it's external perspective, and nobody's going to tell you what to do because you're the one actually running the ship. You know, nobody else can tell you like you need to hit this by X. It's like, yeah, sure, and you are handling all of the operations and, you know, everything else. So I feel like there's different types of angels. My angels are more empathetic and strategic. So like they're strategic in making connections. They're strategic in helping me get visibility in certain arenas, and that has been incredibly instrumental. So I am influenced by them. I'm also influenced by my peer group. So anybody that is my peer group, whether they're founders or not, but they are progressing in their careers, that is a sense, like that is my influence, that is my inspiration. Because if I am able to see it, so I mean, if I am in the center, say like if you're like in the center, you have like circle around you and you're able to see progress across the board around you, you're motivated to make progress and also like to catch up and do more with them. Particularly if it's like peer-to-peer. And that is also like a reason why I started promoting like female founders on my platform on LinkedIn, because I want them to make progress as well. I want them to have a visibility that I have as well. and that way we can progress together. It's such a beauty, it's such a joy to like see somebody progress at the same time, or like have, like be part of that, at least. So yeah, I think that's influential to me. And it's like, so in short, people around me, and also like my angels, or those who are strategic and very empathetic towards like where the stage that we're at.
Yeah, and I think something that you're mentioning there, which obviously we strive for at Startup Grind, is like, positive sum thinking, where you just want everyone around you to do well as you do well, which is exactly what you're saying there.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like it's a win-win. It's just like you just like progress, and it's being in that circle, like in those communities where you feel encouraged to do more, you feel encouraged to progress because somebody else has, and also have the ability. So if they have progressed, then maybe I need to tap onto them and ask, like, how did they do it?
Yeah.
So you learn together.
Yeah. And what is your view on, again, obviously this is something that we've done, you see other firms and other communities doing similar things, but female focused initiatives, female focused programs, so kind of office hours events and pitch battles focused on female founders. What is your view on the female focused events versus just getting a better proportion or a better ratio of male and female in the existing things that match? Again, it goes back to like, do we want to just have female communities, or do we want to integrate better into existing communities?
Well, I think all of these female events are coming up because of the gap, in female invested companies, I think, is like only 2%. So if there's such like there's such a gap, like 98% to like get to more female-led businesses, then you really have to make more of an effort. So that's why I think like there's female only communities, but like that's in order to integrate, to like move into investment, or move into something that's going to provide them value. I don't think that is the way going onward, like in the long term. I feel like there needs to be more integration, but I think like it's because there's such a gap that there's these communities and these only like female-led office hours are coming about. Yeah, and I hope that people also see it this way, like where they see like it's not just about female this or female that, but it's rather like, no, the reality is like it has been a flip of that all the time.
Yes.
So how can we promote more female engagement?
Yeah, it's kind of it's like a bridge to a better future, right? It's like this is not the way it will always be, but it kind of has to be like this right now to balance things out, and then hopefully over time we then integrate the two. And what would you say is the equivalent of that within businesses, right? Because there are so many businesses. I mean, even I see so many pitch decks at Startup Grind where it's like not only just all men, it's all white men on the kind of leadership team slide. So how do you think businesses can build a better ratio of male and female leaders on the leadership teams of their startups?
So this is going to be like an offside kind of like answer, because I was actually researching recently how can people be more aware of like the impact they have on climate change and how they can do something better. Different topic, but I think like the principle is similar, where for centuries we have been only seeing so much, and we haven't had the opportunity to make a change, or like have the tools to make a change. So it is really about how many times, it's almost like in marketing, I think it's like you have to show a brand more than 3 times. I think it's like 3 to 7 times for people to actually have recollection. So how can we establish repetitive ways of how to increase and show awareness of something, whether it's climate change, whether it's gender inequality, whether it's gender gaps, as a whole in different industries. So it's I think like it's like making sure that there is enough sprinkled awareness as a whole for people to really instill in themselves, like, and really understand that this is an issue, like that, and there's an issue that needs to be tackled now. So it's almost like I guess like what I'm talking about is like zooming in into that bridge, and zooming in how many like different initiatives, do you have to have in order for like everybody in the ecosystem understands the issue very well and the problem. So it doesn't come in like offside. It's like, oh yeah, right, I need to do something because it's like Women's Appreciation Day or what, or it's Earth Day, or like it shouldn't come in as a I have to,
Yes.
do something, but rather kind of like, no, I actually understand the issue really well. I understand the root of the problem, where it's coming from. I am embedding the ecosystem around it, and I know the tools I can use, or the community or networks to help others, or push this forward.
Yeah, it's having more conversation, like bringing these topics more to the forefront of conversation in the ecosystem generally, right? I mean, like I have to say, like the main way that I've learned, like especially over the last 10 years, is just speaking to my wife. Like there's so many things that I'm really ashamed that I didn't know. I like there are things that without exposure and awareness, like I can't pick them up. So only through having conversation have I even become aware that certain things exist or don't exist. And now I look at a slide where it's all white men and I'm like, how can they even put that up? But maybe the people who do it don't even realize, they just put them up.
Yeah, so if there's another realization there, it's probably because they're not in the ecosystem that understands that there is already a gap, that there needs to be more balance, diversity of thought as a whole will multiply, what you can do with a business. It's there's so many different good opportunities that come from diversity. And people need to understand that deeply. It's not about like an initiative, and it's not about, this program, this course, this and that. It's more like, no, this is how it is. It's kind of like when you travel, and you, like, for example, when I went to Africa, I saw that my propositions didn't work over there because I was not, down there, in order to understand everything. And when you travel to other countries, you travel to like Germany, or some other countries, you see they have so many different initiatives that are just embedded into the culture, like the way how recycling is tackled. Then you're like, oh, this is not an issue here, but on the other side of the world, it's a huge issue, and you start understanding, where the systems have worked, and how they have come about into initiatives that are just understood. People don't even question it; it just is. And there's the others where it needs a little bit more support. Maybe initiatives need to come around, and I feel like we're in that bridge, as you say, on trying to fix a lot of like gender gaps in different industries.
And I know that we're coming to time now. I think the final question I really want to ask, and we've kind of been, I mean, it has been the thread of the whole conversation. I think the one word that comes up for me is awareness. But outside of that, what would you say is a sort of a nice kind of closing statement for the question, how can men in the global startup ecosystem be better allies for female founders?
I would say, have difficult conversations with, like what you do with your partner or with women, in a way that is not coming judgmental. So it is not about like judging somebody for what they're doing, but really understanding the why behind it, or understanding like if there's a root cause to it, and having like a good sense of empathy in there. You cannot just put your worldview onto another person. You cannot project that. So it is about having that sense of, okay, so like you have this issue. Why is this important to you? And why is this bothering you now? And like, how can I what can I do to support you right now? Or like, do you just want me to listen? Because I'm also like, I can also listen just for now. So, really understanding that for women, and offering those questions in a very calm and supportive way, and not just, kind of like, tell me this, tell me that, tell me that. No, that's not going to work. Yeah. But yeah, having those conversations is very, very important.
Like that. So yeah, it comes back to, I guess, seeking to understand, empathize, and then become more aware. And then the other things will come as kind of byproducts of that progress.
Exactly. Imagine if we were in a world where we were all just very aware, of like we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
It was like not a problem.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, why are you even asking about female initiatives?
Yeah.
we're not there yet.
Hopefully we will.
Yeah.
We need to keep working. Hopefully this interview will at least move the dial a little bit for some people, and yeah, we can keep trying to make progress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I know the hour is up now. It's been a fascinating talking to you, and I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing to support you, and good luck with Monadd.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.